Good morning, friends. In this video, we are going to discuss about the difference between web application, web API, or web services, right? So if you observe this slide, there is a SpiceJet, right? SpiceJet has its own website. There's a spicez.com, right? Any customer of SpiceJet can go to spicez.com and book the tickets, right? Flight tickets. At the same time, the SpiceJet exposes web API or web services to other portals, right? Other travel portals, like for example, yatra.com, Make My Trip, Goibibo, any travel portal, these services are available. So the customer of yatra.com can book SpiceJet flights, right? So how this is possible? Because SpiceJet exposes web API to third party, right? So if you see the difference between these two, this is web application, right? You can see this is the web application. SpiceJet.com, we can use web application. Similarly, yatra.com is also website, web application. But yatra.com, to get SpiceJet information, it interacts using web API, right? So in the web API, if you see, here the data comes actually. For example, yatra.com make a call to SpiceJet using web API, where the response comes in the form of data, XML or JSON. But whereas if you look at spicez.com website, directly talking to SpiceJet application, the response comes in the form of HTML. So this is what you have to understand. So this is the web application now. In the case of web application, it is a end-to-end solution for a user, right? When a customer logs into spicez.com using a browser, customer can interact with SpiceJet. So selecting some flight, booking the flight, making the payment, everything, right? So user can easily navigate from one page to another page. Because websites are developed using hyperlinks, user can easily navigate it. And the response comes in the form of HTML, right? Here the response is like view HTML, right? So this is more like human to system interaction. So any e-commerce, any site, if you take it, as a user can log into that site or user can access that site. That is, user is the human to the system interaction, right? But when it comes to web services, or we can call it as web API or RESTful web services, these are all same, right? In the case of web services, the user will not interact with web services. Please understand here. Because there is a system called yatra.com which is talking to SpiceJet through web services, right? So this is system to system interaction. Here there is no user is going to interact with this because the response comes in the form of data, right? User can only understand if the response comes in the form of HTML, then user can navigate it. But here it is a system to system communication. The data will come here. The yatra.com can use this data and yatra.com can give some meaningful information in the form of HTML to the end user, right? So that is how the web service will be exposed, and that is the difference between web application and web service. I mean, if you see a couple of years, these web services are becoming very popular, right? So like RESTful web services are becoming very popular. So what is the reason here? It is not that, okay, it is not just we are exposing the services or the companies are exposing services to third party, right? But even internally, when you are developing some projects, right? Internally, when you are developing microservice projects also, each service will expose REST API. So here you can see two advantages. One is the REST API can be exposed to outer world, maybe third-party application to interact. Second one is REST API is used for internal applications, right? Because as part of the continuous delivery, we normally develop microservice architecture, right? In the case of microservice, instead of monolithic application, each service will be running as an independent module. For example, here if you see, there is an account service, inventory service, shipping service, all are running as individual modules. But how these services will communicate? Using REST API, the service will communicate. So when it comes to microservice architecture, we very widely use RESTful APIs, right? Similarly, if you look at this slide here, any of the data storage, suppose we are using SQL, NoSQL, file storage, external service, anything, if the data, we want to make it available for any application, it could be internal application or external application, using REST API, we can expose those services, right? That is another advantage of going for REST APIs. So here we discuss the REST API to expose third-party application. Here the REST API is for inter-service communication, we can use it. Similarly, any data storage can be exposed as REST API so that any application, whether internal or external application, can access this data. So like I mentioned about Web application is end-to-end solution for a user. So user opens a browser and interact with the system. It is human system interaction. But web API or web services, or you can say SOAP services, SOAP-based web services, REST-based web services. Here, there is no view here, right? There is no view. It is only data is going to return. That's why user cannot interact with the REST APIs, web services. It is system to system interaction. One system talks to another system. Like we have seen Yatra.com talking to SpiceJet, right? Similarly, if you observe the Twitter, right? So Twitter has its own web application, right? You can go to twitter.com. This is one web application. Anybody can access it. Or you can access Twitter app, anything, right? At the same time, Twitter exposes one api.twitter.com, right? This is the REST API. So using this REST API, any application can integrate with Twitter. For example, if I develop my own application, in that using this API, I can push some tweets to Twitter application, right? Similarly, when it comes to Facebook, all the social media application, if you see, like Facebook has its own website, which is like a web application, or we can use Facebook app. At the same time, Facebook exposes graph.facebook.com, which is a REST API. Similarly, when it comes to like Google Maps also exposes REST API. So these REST APIs, using these REST APIs, any application can talk to Google Maps, right? For example, inside your WhatsApp application, anything you want to integrate Google Maps, we can easily integrate using the REST API. So we discussed about web services, right? Web services, web API, right? So there are SOAP-based web services, REST-based web services. So what is the difference between these two? So we are not going for detailed difference between SOAP and REST. So basic level understanding of SOAP and REST is, SOAP is one message exchange protocol. SOAP itself is a protocol, right? Which runs on SMTP or HTTP, right? Any protocols. So if you observe here, SOAP is a message exchange protocol. It runs on HTTP. HTTP is known as application protocol, right? So what SOAP will do is, it provides its own message structure. Suppose if you see, look at SOAP, there is a SOAP envelope, SOAP header, SOAP body, some attachments, right? Because it has its own message structure, right? And it uses only the HTTP post method, right? So one of the challenging with the SOAP is, SOAP has little overhead because it is introducing its own protocol implementation, right? There would be little payload, heavy payload, right? But when it comes to REST, the advantage of REST is not a protocol. REST is a pattern, design pattern. It comes under architectural pattern. REST is an idea. REST is a concept. So what REST does is, REST says, already there is an HTTP1 protocol which provides different methods, right? Suppose HTTP provides methods like get, post, put, delete, right? So those methods can be used for some CRUD operations. Normally, whenever we expose as web services, web API, most of the cases we do CRUD operations, right? We expose to external services. External services uses, like for example, inserting, deleting, updating, or maybe there could be retrieving some kind of resources, right? That is what normally any services use it. So in the case of REST, REST says use an underlying protocol like HTTP. HTTP itself is capable of providing all the methods. Let us use those methods. So REST is not going to put any extra overhead. REST is using HTTP protocol. At the same time, REST is using JSON, XML, all these media types, so that whatever is already available, so that can be used to develop web services. That is the main motive of going for REST. But when it comes to SOAP, SOAP has its own protocol. It has its own message structure. It is using very limited features of the underlying product like HTTP, right? But both are meant for different purposes, actually. Both are having its own merits and demerits. But when it comes to REST, REST is mainly for stateless services. We can go for REST. If you're looking for some kind of stateful services, we want to have some kind of orchestration. Okay, so those kind of stuff are legacy applications we are interacting actually, right? With the WS standards, we go for SOAP. So to summarize this, REST is not a protocol. REST is just a pattern which uses underlying protocol HTTP, and it uses some of the media types like JSON and XML and develop web services API.